What we do about the enlightened centrists, ladies and gentlemen, they are the thought leaders sitting on the fence, splinters in their backside, above it all, telling us not to be concerned about the things obviously happening before your eyes. And just when you think that you've seen video evidence of utter degeneracy, well, they swoop in to debunk and discredit it. If you'd like to learn about these professional debunkers, you can pay £5 to our website and watch our book club on C.S. Lewis's The Abolition of Man, where he takes a school textbook to task over destroying the moral sentiments of every English schoolboy by saying, well, you actually don't feel a certain way because of the beauty of that waterfall. You're just ascribing feelings to that waterfall. It's all arbitrary. The world can mean whatever you want it can mean. And then in sneaks in ideology under the rubric of nihilism. So let's go to why this discourse all started. This is a post from Libs of TikTok, but I believe she originally got it. If you just scroll down, John, because Dominique, friend of the show, and obviously also on GB News, was one of the first people I saw sharing this. And Dominique had been forwarded lots of screenshots and videos from this company called Cabaret, the Cabaret Baby Rave Company. So if we move to the next tweet, Dominique has shown that some of these events have been cancelled since the backlash has arisen, which is all good news. But we have video evidence of men in thongs, men in bondage gear, men in dresses dancing in front of infants because lots of weird pathological mothers are taking them there. Now, I of course think that the parents should face some kind of repercussion for exposing their child to sexual content, but also the performers are clearly exhibitionist fetishists who are not doing this for inclusivity or family friendliness, as I went on your show to speak about. The founder of Drag Queen Story Hour said that we're not family friendly. Family friendly means the way to identify other queers on the street. So this isn't for good reasons. This is, in front of our eyes, weird perversion. But thank God, the mainstream media have swooped in and told us we're wrong about everything. No. Disbelieve your lying eyes. We go first. TLDR Jack from TLDR News decided to smear Dominique and say that she had misrepresented and doctored these videos, and then he had to delete the tweet and retract it because it turns out the evidence was so overwhelming and everyone was going, well, not really, mate, this is from people that actually attended the event, that he just looked shameful. Now, he had the arrogance to put forth and say that this obvious video evidence was faked, and then had to retract it, not on the principle of that he was wrong, not because he disagrees with sticking children in front of gyrating men in thongs. No, because the evidence was so overwhelming that this time it looked bad to try to run interference. These people are not principled. It's a friend-enemy distinction, and they just hate you. So if we go on to the next one, please. Jack did a Twitter thread basically grovelling and saying that more evidence has arisen suggesting the footage may not have been doctored. I don't care how short the clips were. There was a man with basically his meat and two veg out in front of a 2-year-old. At what point is that meant to be acceptable and family friendly? But all right, let's move next, shall we? Let's move on to the next tweet, please, John. So this is when you went recently down to a protest for Drag Queen Story Hour, accompanied by also friend of the show and GB News host Lawrence Fox. You were faced by a renter mob of looks like about 100 people from Stand Up to Racism there, because apparently saying that men shouldn't be naked in front of children is somehow racist.
That's just the mob that was available for rent that day, I think.
Well, yeah, they came with their placards, of course. And if we go to the next, Politics Joe decided to interview you down there and said the Drag Story Hour never existed in the first place. Well, number one, why was Stand Up to Racism there? Counter-protesting. That'd be a great question. If
Stand Up to Racism are interesting because every time an ethnic minority person got up to speak, they would shout them down.
Of course. Yeah.
So much for listening to ethnic minority voices. And I'm not just talking about me. There were some young women there that were mixed race and black and stuff, and they were not able to be heard because the anti-protesters would shout them down and hurl racial abuse at them. I put a tweet up saying, these anti-racists are being racist, and people's responses, in what way are they being racist? What exactly they're saying? Like, it's always the assumption that, no, you are wrong. You are wrong. And people like Politics Joe, this guy is, anyway, I won't be ad hominem.
Disingenuous.
Yes, because I generously gave him some of my time, even though they've ridiculed me and mocked me in the past. I thought, he's here, let's engage, because that's the whole purpose of us protesters being there, to engage on this topic. And I said to him, he said, why are you here? I said, I think the sexualization of young children is wrong. I think it's beautiful when adults read it to kids, but I don't see why they have to do it in thongs, men dressed as women, and kind of gyrating and thrusting in front of them. It's just inappropriate. It would have been considered a safeguarding risk just a couple of years ago. I don't get it. And he said, well, but is it happening in this pub right here? And I said, it has done, and it has been scheduled. It might have been cancelled for this particular event, but it's not this event that we're protesting. It's the idea of drag queens reading to children, and I think it's inappropriate. And we had a whole conversation about it. They took that bit out and put up a clip. And on the day, he's like, yeah, thank you. I see where you're coming from. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, we all want to safeguard children. And then they put up a clip saying, the culture wars are BS. These people are stupid. There wasn't even a drag queen here, and they're still protesting. Like, he knew what he was doing. And they are the people that say, oh, there are no culture wars, and then propagate the culture wars. They are the worst people.
Well,
and
I wanted to go to the next tweet, actually, because that does sum it up. Because one of my friends and person I've debated on GB News before, who I've taken umbrage with his political takes, but is quite a nice fella interpersonally, Albie, who
But the devil's very charming.
Stop flirting with him. He said anyone else tired of people embarrassing the conservative movement like this?
So people like him are a prime example of why we're in the mess that we're in, because these people are not conservatives. He is a liberal, right?
Yeah.
And he is.
I've told them as much
He's
before.
complicit. So have I. He's complicit in this, because I'm out there protesting the sexualization of children. I thought everyone should get on board with that, but at the very least, conservatives should get on board with that. And what do they take issue with? Me being there protesting. So if he has a bigger issue with me personally than he does with people sexualizing children, I question his motives, and I don't think he's doing the LGBTQ plus community any favors either.
I did respond to him, actually, if you scroll down, John, just with some screenshots of the paper. I don't know how far it will be.
Thank you to
I can't
Dominique and
imagine
Jess
it'll
and
be.
yourself
There
for
it
calling
is.
him out as
Yeah,
well.
so I just mentioned some of the screenshots from the Drag Queen Story Hour Founders paper that I brought up on your show specifically, that says these people have obviously ill motives ideologically and sexually for your children. So
Because they can't reproduce, so they recruit.
spot on. I couldn't put it better myself. So point being, why would we ever trust that they are being family friendly, as they say, and take them at their word for it when they've written elsewhere? And unfortunately, no response. But
the thing is, look, if perverts are trying to indoctrinate children toward their lifestyle, and people are going to defend the perverts over people who are saying it's not okay, I think that makes them complicit in perverse nature. And I think when people are saying it's not happening, and then we provide them evidence and they say it is happening, but it's not how you say it's happening, and then eventually they say it's
a
happening
good thing.
and it's a blooming good thing, these are the devils themselves.
I think, unfortunately, the want to be above it all and to try to befriend everyone ends up befriending no one, and you become an unwilling participant or useful idiot in the obviously malevolent intentions of weird activists.
It's like, so Albie wasn't the only one. I can see Bella's just down there in the comments.
Bella Wallersteiner is a
always
one-woman advertisement of why the patriarchy should exist.
But they're liberals, and there's that Lynn May or whatever her name is as well. And the fact is, these people are like, let's be reasonable. We're conservatives, but we're more reasonable than people like Connor and Calvin. It's like, yeah, so some parents might want to take their kids to these drag queen shows, but they're not fully sexualizing them. They're only sexualizing them a little bit. It's okay. It's up to the parents how much they sexualize their kids. It's like, no, some things are never okay. Some things are never good. This is an example of something that's not good.
Well, having your opposition to something obviously bad slowly eroded is not just the Conservative Party platform, but that's how grooming works.
Exactly.
It's a slow, incremental dismantling of your prejudices against doing something which degrades you. And
so these people are the Trojan horses, and these people are the reason that this country is a mess. It's not necessarily the enemy, it's the people that enable the enemy from within.
Yeah.
The people that call themselves conservatives.
Try and sway some, but some definitely won't be swayed, and that is this Times column, which I just had to talk to you about, because this is from David I can't say his last name, Aronovich, I hope that's correct, for accuracy, not because I'm bothered about insulting him. I think he said this is his last column, thank the Lord, and he decided to say, you shouldn't be distracted by drag queens. Again, it's not happening, it's not a big deal, first step on the road to it's a good thing. So I'm just going to read some from here. If there is one lesson the last 10 years have taught us, it's that populism as a governing ideology, left or right, has failed. Right, so you have come out of the ether. You are completely without ideological prescriptions, without political biases, without any vested interests. You are the neutral arbiter to rationally reorder society. You are the middle way, just like Tony Blair was. Let's see how well that went.
It's the metropolitan liberal elite. That's what that is. We are better. They're nearer to the rest of us.
You're just operating off of presuppositions that you think you have already defined yourself as correct. And this is why you find the left-wingers pathologizing stupidity. And stupidity is not the right word. Not being sufficiently versed in the current thing dogma. They go from you haven't had your programming updated to therefore you must be evil. So working class Baz down the pub, who's working off of his intuition and just wants to live kind of a quiet life with his missus and his spoons and his job, they think because you aren't talking about current social issue, you're not just stupid, but you are an impediment to the actualization of utopia, and we deserve to roll over you. And that's how this is being treated. So very frustrating. It seems that drag queens telling stories to children has recently become quite popular among parents and schools. And in Lewisham, there's a drag queen called Coppertop who has appeared on a hugely popular TV series hosted by the American drag queen RuPaul, which even I have heard of. Top hosts magical storytelling at the pub, and as a parent and now a grandparent myself, I can imagine that kids respond to the theatricality and costuming involved. So he's ceding ground to the drag queens of saying, because they're putting on a performance and they're very colourable and loud, and because children will be surprised by this but not necessarily understand it, they could enjoy it, right? The children are consenting to being there, taken there by their parents. Also, do you know what Coppertop means?
No.
So I covered this when I covered the protest. Don't look it up on Urban Dictionary.
Okay.
Coppertop is a sexual act involving excrement and fellatio.
Oh my gosh. Okay, that's gross.
Yeah, and that's the name of the person they're getting reading to children, but okay. But also imported from the US is a culture war backlash against the sexualization of children supposedly represented by men dressed up as women performing in front of youngsters.
Imagine a backlash against the sexualization of children. Oh my gosh.
But he's not just that, he's saying, oh, how could you possibly think that men dressed as women dancing in front of children is sexual? Self-evidently, I have eyes.
Well, it's always been adult entertainment, hasn't it? And we see these drag queens taking cash in their thongs from children as a stripper would. It's a strip act, essentially.
Yeah, but there's even gradations of drag that... And I don't enjoy drag, and I think it's weird and gross. I never even enjoyed pantomime dames as a kid. I was always like, why is this weird,
creepy.
fat camp man dancing around in a blue wig in front of me? But so Conservative Party conference. Here's a prime example of moderate conservative drag. Right, last night of the conference, they have their big send-off by the LGBT plus conservatives, and they have it in a gay bar.
Which is an oxymoron.
I agree. So what they did was they hosted a drag act on a rotating stage that just did karaoke. Now, I think that's cringeworthy. I think it's decadent, and I don't think it belongs in any kind of cultural English conservatism. However, it's not sexualized. It's just a weird man dressing up as a woman and singing. Not my taste, but it's in the appropriate place.
In a liberal society, adults can do what they like as long as they're not harming other people, etc. But this is not about adults.
Don't put me off, Calvin. I'm not in favour of a liberal society at this point. But
that's what we live in, unfortunately.
But point being, that's not even what's happening. You've got men hiking up skirts and doing the splits and exposing their genitals. There was a story in Florida that I haven't brought into this, but I should have, where Ron DeSantis has revoked the liquor license. That's it. He hasn't imprisoned anyone, which is gutting, of a Hyatt hotel because they hosted a family-friendly drag story event where the man had prosthetic breasts and had a child motorboat him.
How is that family-friendly? That's
It's
paedophilia.
not. It's never meant to be family friendly. It's meant to conscript your children into weird ideological cult via sexual confusion.
I mean, it's literally grooming.
Yeah, it is. But don't worry, it's not happening, but it's a good thing. The Lewisham demonstration was organised by a group called Turning Point UK.
Oh no.
You're right there, mate. One of a plethora of anti-woke organisations highly active in Britain. Their most celebrated speaker was Calvin Robinson, who's he when he's at home, who, although the Church of England refused him ordination, likes to dress as a vicar. Would you like to just...
I love that line because they couldn't help but get that in there. Like, they have to get that little ad hominem dig in there. So I do dress as a vicar because I have a parish and I'm a deacon, an ordained minister. It's quite well known that I didn't get ordained in the Church of England because I left the Church of England because they were too woke and we had a battle. However, I did get ordained and I'm in communion with 80% of Anglicans around the world. My orders are valid and recognised, and so is my qualification. However, these people don't know what a real vicar is. When they say, he's not a real priest, it's like, okay, so what is a real priest? Let's talk about apostolic succession. Let's talk about sacerdotal worship. Let's talk about what that means to be a real priest. They don't know what it means. They have no idea, but it's just an easy throwaway line. You know, that everyone has one. Darren Grimes has one, his crafty wank. I don't know what yours is, but the left...
Probably something about my ears, I don't know.
Because they're unthinking and they want to personally attack you because they can't defeat your arguments because they know you're speaking truth. And that's what this is. I actually wrote to his editor about this entire article, because I said, first of all, either he's a liar or he's a poor journalist, because he goes on, I'm sure you're going to read in a minute, but he goes on to say there's no evidence of this happening. I gave them loads of evidence of this happening. It's clearly all out there. So either he didn't look or he doesn't want to look. And I also said, likes to dress as a vicar is quite a below-the-belt ad hominem attack for someone that is an ordained minister and has a parish church to look after. And the editor says, okay, we'll correct the line about the vicar, which clearly hasn't been corrected. However, we don't see the characterization of the article that you've portrayed. So I was like, okay, well, I'll just leave you to it. Because at this point, the editor is siding with the columnist, this does tend to be the case. But when you're providing evidence to suggest that the columnist is clearly wrong and or a poor journalist, you would have thought the editor, wanting to look after the dignity of the paper, would have had a second thought, but no.
Yeah, but Times Radio has recently hired Kathy Newman, so I don't think dignity is high on their
The
list.
Times went down a long time ago.
There's also the fact that you said a little minute ago about the Westminster bubble being insulated, the journo class and metropolitan elite. These people don't do anything on the ground, but they don't actually do their research. They haven't spoken to you. They haven't watched your Epochs with Bo or any of your segments on GB News.
And I've written for the Times in the past. They could have asked me for comment if they wanted to.
Yeah, but you are against the narrative, so that's very inconvenient. And he also hasn't been down to the protests. He hasn't seen any of the footage for himself, whereas you've actually been on the ground protesting it. The point being, these people are so devolved from the consequences of their actions that they feel entitled to sit above it all.
Yeah.
Because, frankly, it's not their children's breasts being cut off in the Tavistock Clinic.
This is the problem I have. So that Lynn May also attacked me today, similar to Albie and Bella and all those people, saying, Calvin's just opposing things. He doesn't actually do anything. I'm like, look, first of all, I was down on the street. Second of all, I've provided alternative resources that I've created for schools. I've consulted schools. I've consulted the DfE.
You're actually putting in the legwork.
Spoken to the government. I've worked with think tanks to put reports together. I have done positive work, and I do provide alternatives, and I'm working on this because I care. So for people to sit on the sidelines and say, oh, you're just opposing something. Actually, some things do need opposing, and sexualizing children does need opposing. There is no positive to that, although the positives I have tried too. So these people are just disingenuous and dishonest, and actually they are always the thing that you're accusing you of.
It's always projection.
Yeah.
In his speech, Robinson demanded, with something approaching rhetorical ability, just snide cattiness.
Really snide.
Ask not why your children are so keen to spend time with drag queens. Ask why drag queens are so keen to spend time with your children.
They still haven't got an answer to that.
No, because they can't refute it. Because obviously the children aren't choosing to spend time with their drag queens. They're being brought there by weird pathological devouring mothers, ensnared with the ideological obsession of looking compassionate on social media, to the point of where they will give their children over to obvious predators.
Yeah,
but he doesn't want to
Baal,
say
isn't it? It's sacrifice to Baal. That's what this is.
Yeah.
And when you see the kids with their daunt expressions, looking really bewildered at what's going on, you see the mothers like, I'm really progressive and inclusive. Like something's wrong there. They're not parenting.
This is not so much an insinuation as an accusation.
Yeah.
Since there hasn't been a single instance I can find of drag queens grooming children for sex, hold on to that, those who do that tend to dress up as respectable middle-aged men, this simply constitutes an unpleasant libel. Right, okay, you haven't got any examples. Okay, I'm just going to assume you're a crap journalist, because I've got three just offhand. Right, first one, drag queen Robert Clothier, who headlined Brighton Pride, caught in a police sting after arranging sex with children with chocolate-flavoured condoms and pink underwear from Primark in his bag. He had multiple instances of child pornography at his home, was only jailed for 18 months. He's out. Yeah? Right, next one. Alfonso Garza in Texas. He was a convicted sex offender and they let him host Drag Queen Story Hour because the library didn't do a background check. Right, next one. Here's one. Most recent, Tate Gallery guy, right? He decided to crowdfund for the funeral of a convicted child sex offender who has recently died of manslaughter charges which are being investigated outside a Cardiff nightclub. Drag queens, right? This is the most one of the most recent protests.
Yep.
So you just didn't bother looking it up, did you? Because you're running interference for a regime that's paying your wages at the expense of children's safety.
Yeah.
Disgusting. Back to his terrible article then. It's so stupid. Every Christmas, tens of thousands of children go to see men dressed up as women in pantomime. In the 1970s, their grandparents made Danny Delarue Britain's highest paid entertainer. And it's just waffling on about these false equivalencies.
It's such a lazy false equivalence. It's one they always go to straight away. Whenever you mention this on social media, it's like, oh, you don't like panto then? Right, if you think pantomime is the same as adult entertainment drag queens, then you are either dumb or you're lying.
Yeah, you're absolutely lying. The reality is that most of us just want little part in these conflicts and would rather be guided by moderation and common sense. Oh, I'm so sorry that the sexualization of children is such an inconvenience to your day. Writing Telegraph columns on, Times, because Telegraph's actually quite good on whatever other wastrel nonsense that you shouldn't be paid for. Why should one accept that a person's conscience concerning gay equality is somehow to be more respected if it arises from church doctrine than if it simply reflects personal prejudices? Or as my daughter put, why is Christian homophobia somehow better than atheist homophobia? Unlike some cultural warriors, you may agree that religion deserves no such privileges.
So that's Christophobic.
Yeah, just contempt for your beliefs.
Christianity homophobic. That's Christophobic right there. And what's this got to do with gay rights?
Yeah. because it's the LGBTQ plus community, which, as I said on your show when I was debating that woman Scarlett that works with Labour, they're not a community. And she goes, yes, they are. And I went, okay, where do they live? Name them.
But
Like, what's
he's
their
being
interest there,
homophobic, conflating sexualized drag queens with gay rights.
Yeah.
I don't see what one has to do with the other.
Yeah, I don't see how liking men or liking women leads you inexorably to liking children,
No.
because I know plenty of gay people, and they don't want to diddle kids. A sensible centrist take, I suppose. Maybe I'm just a radical.
This is the TQ messing up the LGB. That's what this is.
Absolutely. But we can't say they're insidious, so you might nearly get arrested again. Oh, wait. Drag queens are not sexualizing our children. You're just lying. Okay. Don't fall for the culture warrior's hysterical shtick. Treat it with contempt. Unlike getting to grips with the Stormont break or understanding net zero or contemplating the future of AI, any idiot or popular charlatan can have an opinion about drag queens or statues. The irony of writing this column about it. In fact, it's all they have an opinion about. We don't have to listen. Now, first of all, Calvin, is that all you have an opinion about? Because he doesn't know anything about the church, and you just rattled off plenty of knowledge about it.
I have plenty of opinions on plenty of subjects, and drag queens is just one of them. I don't see how a guy like this can say, first of all, it's not a problem, and then ignore the people who are addressing the problem. And it's either one or the other, surely.
And also, he lists issues there where it's just utilitarian negotiation of how much money we're going to spend making you poor. So the destination's already been agreed upon at the time. It's just how breakneck pace we already get there. So you don't get a say in it. It's not very democratic. And he's just gaslighting you into putting up no resistance to things that the regime already want to do. Yeah. So I thought we'd just look at the tweet thread where you defiantly say to him, I'm glad this is your last column. If we just scroll down, John, as we're talking, please. And he's saying that you made libelous comments about him. If we click on show replies, just under David's reply to Calvin, please. And you said, I bet you I won't withdraw that before you withdraw the accusations of remarks in your article. And he says, I'm gonna go after you for defamation. You just put Chad no.
Yeah. I mean,
which I absolutely respect.
I will not withdraw those remarks because I mean those remarks. And if he wants to try and sue me for defamation, he can go ahead. First of all, it costs a lot of money. But second of all, I'd probably counter-sue him because he's the one who's making defamation remarks against me in his article.
Yep. Good luck. And also, you sent in something to the newspaper, and the newspaper didn't decide to change it.
And even though they said they would change it, and they haven't changed it.
Which is why he's probably not going to sue you for defamation, because he realises he'd be up S Creek without a paddle. But we can't hurt these people's feelings, right? It's a bad tactic. It's bad optics. As we've been reliably informed by an ex-employee of the Daily Wire called Christina Buttons. If we can go on to this, she decided to publish, I believe this was on a Substack, about why after Michael Knowles said we must eradicate the transgender ideology from public life because it's doing harm to people. Again, Knowles framing it in terms of compassion. And Matt Walsh saying to Dylan Mulvaney, you will never be a woman because you're a biological man. Yeah. No matter how many surgeries you have, you will have known your past life. Put things very harshly, but it's all true because these people are supporting the butchery of children. She said, but my feelings are hurt.
Who said that?
Christina Buttons. She was a staff writer for the Daily Wire, and she said, my feelings are hurt. I was hired with the auspices that transgender people, we can allow them to live their lives and not be criticised, and it's only about the kids.
No one's criticism free. Yeah. They can live their lives, but we have a right to criticise them.
Yes. It's almost like you went to work for an outlet populated almost unanimously by Christians who believe that men and women were created in the image of God, and that to defy that is blasphemous. But anyway, she still complains, and she says, a number of those who identify as transgender today may become detransitioners tomorrow. They will need our help, especially as they face a torrent of attacks from their former community for the sin of apostasy. That's absolutely fair. But what Walsh and Knowles weren't doing was attacking those people.
No.
They were attacking the ideology, and someone directly involved the Biden administration funding these castrative surgeries, like Dylan Mulvaney. And she said, as a journalist, I have to believe there are reachable centrists, including moderate liberals who are uncomfortable with gender ideology, but have been insulated from serious coverage of this medical scandal. Winning over hearts and minds is difficult enough without inflammatory statements such as transgenderism must be eradicated from public life. There is a critical distinction between speaking truth and being tactless, between sticking to the facts and sticking it to the libs. You're offended at factual statements that the ideology itself is untrue, and you are bending over backwards to compromise with confused people who have mutilated themselves in pursuit of a goal they will never achieve. So that's not true, and it's not compassionate.
So she's close, as in truth must always be expressed in love, of course.
Yeah, I agree.
And love in truth. It goes both ways, but she's saying that people should be sheltered from the truth.
Yeah.
That's
also,
not loving.
Christ came to bring love, but he also said, I came to bring a sword.
Well,
and
indeed.
The sword was very much rhetorical. So I just thought we'd explain briefly before we wrap up on this particular part how these people are not acting genuinely. There are properly subversive malevolent activists hiding beneath the sea of the people that tell you to look the other way. One of those is Peter Tatchell, who always gets invited on GB News. Because I suppose we have to meet Ofcom regulations now.
Well, I've said I won't have him on my show ever again unless I'm able to explore this issue.
Yeah, they keep pitting you against him, which I'm glad they do because it's someone that
on other people's shows they
talk against his nonsense. But so
literally,
yeah, Peter has been celebrating this. My priest actually read out this tweet in his recent homily and said that this is the degeneration of society. So it's nice that some churches are still good out there.
Sound.
Tatchell said the UK ranks in the world's top 4 countries for accepting divorce, homosexuality, casual sex, assisted dying, prostitution, and abortion. Bravo! Live and let live. Well, assisted dying and abortion isn't
It's not
living.
letting live, is it? No.
No. I did delightfully ratio this tweet with thanks, I hate it. So that was good. The point being is...
I retweeted it saying, let's celebrate our degeneracy, because that's what he's doing here.
Yeah. And it seems that he has some other taboos he would like to dismantle. We're going to address some contentious territory today because James Esses, also a friend of the show, decided to do a Substack article on the pedigree of his crimes regarding the sexualization of children. So if you notice ever someone puts a tweet out replying to Peter Tatchell saying that he has said some questionable things about child sex before, he copy-pastes a link and a press release pre-prepared to refute this. Yeah. Esses is Substack, and we won't read through all of it, but it goes through things like... in 1997... Peter Tatchell wrote a letter to The Guardian, and it says, Ros Coward thinks that it's shocking that Gay Men's Press has published a book, Dare to Speak, which challenges the assumption that all sex involving children and adults is abusive. I think it's courageous. The letter continues by saying societies where consenting intergenerational sex is considered normal, beneficial, and enjoyable by young and old alike, and says, several of my gay friends, gay and straight, male and female, had sex with adults from the ages of 9 to 14. None feel they were abused.
But they were abused.
Yes. And my point is that there are people that are obviously aiming at abusing children.
Of course.
And using the veneer of respectability to get away with it. And people like David are running interference by telling us to look the other way. And that's the only reason why the likes of Peter continues to get invited on these networks.
Yep.
So I just want to finish with the fact that despite all this, you were the one that got cancelled. Great. If we can go to the last one, please, John. Yeah. So you were going to the Royal Academy of Dance, and
so I've been on their board for a number of years now. The former CEO invited me onto the board because he was a good man. He said, Calvin, I can see things are going woke here. I want to provide an alternative perspective. I've seen the stuff you said about BLM, and that's so important. We need to hear more of that, especially on our education subcommittee, because we don't want them to go down the route of critical race theory and victimization and all of that kind of nonsense. He said, please, would you come on? So I said yes, doing my civic duty. I got nothing out of it whatsoever.
Yep.
Gave up many hours over the last few years to help these people out. They've got a new CEO who's clearly far more woke than the previous one. And after I campaigned against sexualization of children, after I campaigned against the drag queens, I received this letter without a thanks for my time or my service or anything like that, just saying, look, we can't be associated with you. We're firing you from our board. And I just found, first of all, I found it disrespectful, but then I read into it. It says, we tolerate all views. I don't think anyone should tolerate all views. Some views are intolerable. But this says, we tolerate all views, including those that our staff disagree with. And that's a core RAD value. So they say it's not what you say, it's how you say it. It wasn't your views, it's how you put them across. So I asked them, okay, so what is it about the way I put my views across that you found intolerable to the point of we never had a conversation and you just sacked me without engaging? What is it, or how is it that I put my views across? And I've been chasing them on this because I want to get it down to a T. And they keep saying, look, it's not your views, it's how you say them. So, and they've given me a tweet now. They said, you tweeted something on this time, on this day at this time. So I've looked at it. It is the monologue that I gave where I said, ask not why your children need to see drag queens, ask why drag queens are so keen to spend time with their children. And it's a 5-minute monologue where I go into saying, I think it's inappropriate, it's a safeguarding concern, and we should all be asking questions. I don't think asking questions is a bad thing. But how did I put the message across? Well-mannered, polite, reasonable, moderate, I think, at least, unless they can prove otherwise. But what this is, they don't want to be sued just for discrimination. They know that the moment they say, look, we do not tolerate your views, that's a protected characteristic, whether it's my religious views or my political views, right? That's what they're hiding from. That's what they always hide from. That's what part of the debate I had with the Church of England was. Like, these liberals cannot tolerate conservative views. And I said to them, so are you condoning the sexualization of children, because that's what I was speaking against. So either you're for it or against it, right? Some issues are black and white. There's no nuance there when it comes to sexualizing children. Are you for the sexualization of children? And they said, no, we're not. It's not that we're against. I'm like, okay, so tell me, come on. But they can't. They can't give an answer.
And they're allowed to not give an answer because idiots in the media just keep running interference for them by telling you, gaslighting you over and over that it's not happening, but it's a good thing. So press people on this issue. Don't be gaslit, because it is children's safety at stake here.
If you appreciated that segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content that's on the site, such as the Contemplation series, this episode on how corporations squeeze money out of people. If you'd like to find out what else is being put out, you can follow on Getter at lotuseaters_com on Getter. Thank you and goodbye.